This is where technology, like digital ID, becomes critical.
How do we force people to carry digital ID? COVID? Tried that. Climate change? Maybe. Migration. Welcome to the Brit Card. Welcome to 1984. Hello there, you Awakening Wonders. Remember, we stream Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at these times, a variety of fantastic shows. And if you don't have Rumble Premium yet, get Rumble Premium now while you are still free. You should support a platform that stands up for free speech, because let me tell you, the day is coming where if you're from the UK, you will be forced to carry digital ID. How are they going to do that when we're so cynical about government authority and government power after we saw during the pandemic that we absolutely can't trust them? Well, call it a Brit Card and claim that it's an anti-migration measure. It's extraordinary the lengths and degree to which deception will be deployed in order to create obedience and compliance. And if they'll do it in the UK, how can you be sure they won't do it in the United States of America? What ways will they leverage in order to maximize control? Presumably, they will refer back to the forefathers of the imperialist globalist movement, and one Nosferatu-like elder stands simpering and slithering above all else, like a Harry Potter character, actually, like a kind of Voldemort of global politics. Tony B. Liar, Tony Blair, that extraordinary cohort of George W. Bush when it came to the massacre of children in Iraq, is back.
We cannot continue with business as usual, and change is inevitable. This is where technology, like digital ID, becomes critical. My institute's own analysis.
Oh, have you got an institute for us? Thank you for going to so much trouble. If you're English, like I am, you'll have so many recollections of Tony Blair turning up on your television set and telling you how to feel about things. Princess Diana has died.
Our thoughts and prayers are with Princess Diana's family.
She was the people's princess. Yeah? Who killed her? We're going to be going to Iraq.
I gave the order for British forces to take part in military action in Iraq, sending our armed forces, our thoughts and prayers.
It is necessary. It is the right thing to do. You will have a great catalogue, a kind of mental Rolodex of the times you've seen Tony Blair come out and lie to you. Let me tell you what digital ID is about. Digital ID is about maximal surveillance and maximal control. They will never tell you, we're going to control you. They will always tell you, we're going to protect you. In order to legitimize their measures of protection, they will have to continually institute crisis. That's what many people believe the pandemic was. That's what the perpetual forever wars are all about. That's how climate change will be deployed, and that's why our culture will continue to generate division to ensure that there is no organised and collegiate movement against centralised authority. Every time you think there's a bit of momentum garnering, there'll be a crisis in the Middle East that will divide people, or there'll be a crisis in domestic politics. Their function is to ensure division. What we need to create is an opt-out state where you can say, I don't participate in your systems of government anymore. I'm not paying tax, I'm not paying debt. We are going to be in a parallel adjacent system. Indeed, if you can have a Brit card that has all of your tax information, all of your financial information on it, why couldn't we use a radical crypto version to set up our own parallel economies? Of course we could. They want to prevent the realization taking place that we have the technology now to exist entirely in separate parallel economies and system of government that are truly democratic, and if we've got any sense, undergirded not by rationalism and materialism, but by divine principles, which is a fancy way of saying things like kindness, sharing, togetherness, unity, love. Ideas that may sound corny to you, but might be the only armory we have against the true evil that's imposing itself even now.
Shows that introducing this in the UK would save at least $2 billion a year, and likely more, by reducing losses to fraud, improving tax collection, and better targeting of state support.
Oh, thanks, mate. Thanks very much. Thanks for that $2 billion. Do you think for a moment you're going to see that? We've got $2 billion. Now I can buy myself a new hat or a new pair of crutches or some luminous prophylactics for unending sex in car parks. Surely there must be something we can do to distract ourselves from the never-ending misery of British political life and the deception of the globalists that ultimately ultimately control these bureaucrats, these insipid, tepid political figures. And on that note, here's Yvette Coupo, who I think is the Home Secretary, but I stopped learning the political titles of British politicians because I find it too depressing. Essentially, it's another person that's an empty, hollowed out, vampiric vassal here to convey to you the information of permanent bureaucratic bodies like NATO, the EU, or the UN, permanent bodies that ultimately govern the country your ancestors died for.
I think it's the white paper and your answer there, obviously there is huge potential for digital ID in terms of new arrivals and securing our borders and having an immigration system that's fit for purpose.
Just remember, a minute ago they were telling us that immigration is our strength, that diversity is our strength. They don't care about migration. Migration's a good thing. Now they're telling us that migration is a really bad thing and you need to have a digital ID or the better rebranded Brit Card. Let's call it the Oasis card. It's your Spice Girl card. It's your Disney World free pass. You can call it whatever you want. What it is the legitimization of authority. What it is and what it will always be is control that they mask behind care. This is an article from Reclaim the Net to give you a bit of context on the agenda to have digital ID that's gone on for a long time. People always realise that it's a nefarious scheme designed to create centralised Luciferian control. Then they rebrand it a couple of years later. What are people terrified of at the moment? Climate change. Tell them it'll help climate change. What are people terrified of at the moment? Migration. Tell them it'll help migration. What are people concerned about now? That there's mRNA lab leaks of a bird flu-like virus. Well, tell them it'll help with that. Just tell them what you need to tell them to make them obedient. Labour's growing reliance on digital ID to address immigration failures is unfolding alongside a broader and far more consequential transformation, a nationwide rollout of the government.uk wallet, a centralised digital identity app set to launch this summer. I'm old enough to remember that about 2 years ago, they were telling us that Bitcoin was evil. Why? Because they couldn't control it. When they realised they couldn't stop it, they set up their own digital ID. Hey, actually, cryptocurrency isn't bad for the environment like we told you. It's all right. Just would you use our one, the one that we can control? We wouldn't use it like Canada during the trucker protest to shut down your finances if you were disobedient. We wouldn't have peculiarly diffuse free speech laws that meant you could be imprisoned for protest. We wouldn't have deliberately vague laws in almost every area of public life to ensure that we can arrest people at a moment's notice for what we conceive of as being a crime whenever it's convenient to come up with one. We would do that. We are doing that. That's our policy. While pitched as an administrative upgrade, the shift arrives at a politically charged moment with the government invoking border control failures as justification for embedding surveillance infrastructure more deeply into everyday life.
Just in terms of the wider population and other issues, so for example, online fraud and online crime is one of the huge challenges for your department and for crime prevention and the criminal justice system. Do you see digital ID having a role to play in that? And yeah, more generally across the population, or do you see it confined to simply an issue of immigration and border control within the auspices of the Home Office, of course, because there are other benefits in other departments?
So I think our clear focus is around being able to ensure that we've got proper rules being respected and enforced in the immigration system.
We've worked out that people care about migration at the moment. Don't matter how much we tell people that migration isn't a problem and that Tommy Robinson should be in jail, people keep not liking migration. Probably because if you've got a country, and the country's got to have boundaries, borders, rules, an indigenous native population. In fact, these things are synonymous and irreconcilably connected. Anyway, the thing is, we've found a way to leverage digital ID. It's migration. So we cause the problem. We benefit from causing the problem, destabilising the population and creating chaos. Then we benefit from the solution. Good little system. I'll only be playing this part for a couple more weeks and then I'll be replaced by someone who's so similar to me, it might as well be me, even if I'm a different colour and a different sex. Still basically this same voice, an endless continuum of bureaucratic language, uninterrupted for centuries now by total centralised corrupt imperialists.
And in the asylum system as well, that we can make sure that if that there is evidence if people are not here lawfully or they are not working lawfully, we can get that information. We can actually make sure we can take the much stronger action to prevent that kind of abuse of the system taking place.
Free speech is under attack, mine particularly, yours and everybody's, whether it's British government officials demonetising people on YouTube, putting people in jail for Facebook posts, or the various other ways the nefarious systems and institutions that work, I reckon, for Satan drag us down into the pit. We have to fight back. And how are we going to fight back? Rumble. You know, when you first heard of Rumble, you thought, ooh, what is this little organisation? You thought about Royal Rumble, didn't you? You thought about a rumble in the jungle. You thought about a rumble in your tumbo. But now we know that rumbling is the sweet tectonic plate shifting towards free speech. And if you get Rumble Premium, you don't only get great content creators like old Rusty Brandstein, AIPAC supported Zionist, you also get Mustafa Brandishahad. He loves Islam. Also, you get old Russ. He loves Trump. And then you get Russell. He's a big fan of Kamala Harris. How many people do you need on one channel? You gotta get it. This is a free speech conduit where you're free to be whoever you want to be. It's all available to you in the Rumble chat. For a limited time, you can get 10 of your American dollars off, and you can use crypto, baby, using the promo code AIPAC. No, using the promo code BRAND. Visit rumble.com/brand and get your discount today. Together, we can turn the crimson tide of foaming propaganda and stay free together. Click the link. By presenting digital ID as the answer to immigration enforcement shortcomings, ministers risk normalising a system that reaches far beyond its initial remit. The convergence of border policy and digital identity expansion suggests a strategic reframing where rising migrant arrivals are used not only to defend immigration crackdowns, but also to accelerate public buy-in for permanent digital identity regimes, starting with digital veteran cards and driving licenses, and eventually consolidating all state-issued credentials into a single app by 2027. You'll have heard of Project 2030. You'll know that there's likely to be between now and then a succession of crises of various magnitude, all designed to legitimise increased centralised control and the utilisation of existing technology for centralised authority, rather than what could alternatively happen if you and I stay switched on. This technology gets used to maximise democracy, to maximise communication. You want to run your crazy little Sharia law world? You could do it over there completely free and independently. You want LGBTQ plus world, you want Christian world, you want Disney world. Maybe you want a world where you maximally bow down to the authority of the government. You can have that too. Same as the vaccines, actually. What they should have done in the first place is, we've got this thing, it might work, it might not, take it if you want. They didn't say that, did they? They said, we've got this thing, it definitely works. If you don't take it, you're killing your grandmother, you should be locked in your house, we should be able to deny you medical treatment. In the margin between the truth and what they told us is the revelation of their agenda. And that will be consistently true, I predict, with this issue now. Here's a short article from The Telegraph that describes how the forthcoming Brit Card controversy, because this will be the most controversial political policy in a generation, might be Keir Starmer's poll tax. If Keir Starmer is Margaret Thatcher without the bollocks, maybe Brit Card is his poll tax, the moment where he pushes people too far and loses the nation. Fingers crossed. In March 1990, shops and cars in Covent Garden were set ablaze in the worst riot in the capital had seen for a century. Few things had angered the public like the new community charge, commonly known as the poll tax. But something else happened too, which has been largely forgotten. Councils saw their revenues crash as millions of names disappeared from the voter rolls. Now, Keir Starmer's favourite think tank has proposed what could turn out to be his own poll tax. The rebranded BritCard will morph into a full-blown digital ID system, acting as a familiar feature of daily life for everyone in the country. Familiar feature of daily life. Tyranny, total absolute control. A familiar feature of daily life. Bending over, allowing your anus to dilate, and being forcibly penetrated by a government that demands nothing less than anal loyalty. But there are two serious problems here, and they're on a collision course. First, BritCard will be mandatory, so we'll be forced to use it or go off-grid entirely. Isn't that a wonderful option? Don't you sometimes consider, as I once did with Nick Cage on a movie set, asked the question right out of nowhere, do you ever think you could get off-grid? I went, yeah. I just thought it was a general chat. And he went, how? And then I had to sort of explain a whole system of getting off grid, which I didn't really understand. But maybe increasingly we can use the technology available to us to set up parallel economies. If all of your revenue is in something like Bitcoin, absolutely, truly decentralized, and your communication is available to you in ways that are not dependent on government-sponsored initiatives, and if we can achieve a state where the government and large corporations aren't in total collusion and, let's call it what it is, conspiracy, it will be possible for us to opt out and live in our own communities, grow our own food, trade only where necessary. Gandhi was discussing such ideas nearly a century ago. Now we have the technology, ironically, to live in this way. I say ironically because Gandhi said that technology was tyrannizing us and we become too fascinated with gadgets, and that guy had never seen an iPhone. Lord alone knows what they're made of that. Second, and this should alarm us, Labour Together proposes that BritCard will use the government's one login digital identity service, which is mentioned 13 times in the proposal. Unlucky for some. This has become an expensive and sprawling government IT project that has engaged hundreds of contractors and cost taxpayers over £300 million. Do you remember voting for that? You didn't vote for that. What we know about it is very troubling. Concerns have been raised about the security of the project at the deepest levels of the state. When we create a one login account, it hoovers up our personal identification documents. This ID becomes the key that unlocks other government services, so an insecure system has serious consequences. It not only puts individuals at risk of identity theft and impersonation, but also makes defrauding the government much easier. A fake ID can get you a long way. Phishing gangs accessed records of 100,000 taxpayers. HMRC officials admitted last week and used IDs to steal an estimated £47 million. An ID system like One Login is where criminal gangs would go first, and BritCard will forcibly enrol you into it. I'm not worried about criminals. I'm worried that the government are criminals. You know that Tony Blair invests in healthcare companies and insurance companies that rely on NHS data. Tony Blair and the organisations that he is part of have participated in the transfer of NHS documents into the hands of American health insurance companies in order to create profit. Labour Together also thinks the public will rally around a digital ID app. Our polling revealed extremely strong public support for using a digital ID system for a range of use cases, argues Labour Together. Yeah, I'll tell you how they do that. This is how surveys work. Did you think it was bad when those 3 little girls were murdered in Southport? Yeah, I did. Does it concern you that there are undocumented migrants in the UK? Yeah, it does. Would you feel happier if there was some way of monitoring those migrants? Yes, I would. Would you be interested in a digital ID system that helps you to control? Yes, I would. Right now, you've given your answer. The question is the answer. What about these questions? Are you concerned that you can't trust your government and they'll use information that they access about you to control you? Are you concerned about free speech? Are you concerned that laws are being changed almost in front of your very face to ensure that you can be persecuted and penalised when it's convenient to the government? Yeah, I am concerned about that. But no one ever asks those questions, do they? Polling by YouGov finds that around a fifth of UK's consumers would not be comfortable with having an internationally recognised digital ID card or wallet like BritCard. Fewer than half, or 44%, want a government ID that stores their biometric data, according to a survey. History doesn't repeat itself exactly, but it can rhyme. In 1990, millions went off-grid to avoid a new hated tax. Of course, it's very difficult to disappear today, but millions of us will face a profound moral choice similar to ones faced by voters in 1990 as both the poll tax and digital ID were made compulsory. There you are, maximum control. What centralised globalist governments do in your country and in my country is they respond to permanent governmental organisations, bureaucratic bodies like NATO, EU and the UN to ensure that policies are put in place that will enable them to continue to exert control regardless of who is in government. Therefore, the only way to resist them at the moment is through movements that are somewhat populist and maybe even nationalist. My particular perspective as a man of God is that we are all one human family. Ironically, though, that means that we should have the maximum amount of authority in our own lives as individuals, bowing down before our almighty creator. And whilst we might electively participate in tribes of extraordinary size, it should always be elective, it should always be consensual, it should always be commensurate with the values that we get from God, not the rationalist, materialist, Luciferian, artificial, counterfeit values that the globalist imperialist will always try to inculcate. Have you not recognised the pattern yet? What did you learn in the pandemic period? Surely you learned you can never, ever trust them, ever. And by them, I mean the media, global corporatists, and state government, and in particular where the free come in alignment in a vile trident of evil. Oppose them, resist them, disobey. But that's just what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments and chat. If you don't have Rumble Premium yet, get Rumble Premium now. Remember, we stream these days at these times. Join us for our revolution. In the meantime, if you can, stay free. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.